Okay, good evening to everyone. And I'd like to congratulate everyone who was with us regularly as we finished last week the first Perek, the first chapter of Pirkei Avot. And it's actually a big deal to finish something, to start something, and to finish and to learn regularly and to have you all with us regularly. If any of you missed the shiurim, they're uploaded to the YouTube channel. You can just write youtube.com at Nordic Beit Midrash, and you'll find them week by week. And if you found something particular that you wanted to re-listen to, you are very welcome to do so. So as we finished the first perek, the first chapter last week, this week we begin with the second chapter, Perek Bet of Pirkei Avot. And the first chapter, we went through many generations. We went from Moshe and him receiving the Torah all the way down till we spoke a lot about Hillel and Shammai. We talked about the fact that they were just towards the end of the period of the Second Temple. And this week we go forward and just about that same period a bit further. And one of I think that we see that Pirkei Avot, that the Mishnayot become longer than they were. Like we heard very short passages and we learned about the meaning of them. And we see as the Mishnayot get longer, which also may be connected to the fact, if Rabbi Jair and Rabbi Natan would like to comment on this either now or afterwards as well. But I was thinking that in a sense that when you lose your spiritual center and the Beit Mikdash, the temple is destroyed, there's a need to be, you don't have that same sense of feeling that you had by going to the temple, and the wisdom and the knowledge replaces that in a sense, and there's more to be said or more necessary to give teaching in that way. That's my own interpretation, but you will definitely see that the Mishnayot are longer than they were before, and more in detail in understanding what it is that the path of the rabbi or he's saying or what he's trying to give over to us. So I hope you're all excited to begin this new chapter in your lives, chapter 2 of Pirkei Avot. And I will now pass the mic over to Rav Natan and to Rav Yair. And one second, here you go, bevakasha.
Toda Rabba, thank you so much. Welcome everybody. Erev Tov, Natan.
Erev Tov, good to see everybody.
Yes, it is really nice. I will open, if I may, Rav Natan. We're coming to a new chapter, and I need to say something about something that already started in the last chapter, with it's quite interesting. I don't know if you talked about it 3 Mishnayot ago, but there was a jump. If you remember the beginning of the Mishnayot, now I'm giving you a short history lesson. If you remember the Mishnayot from the first chapter, we started from Moses on the Sinai mountain and went through the generation quite quickly until we come to the period from Miziknei HaKnesset HaGdola. So you have we come over to the time of the Tanaim, of the rabbis of the Mishna time, that starts very early, but we don't have a lot from them, as Rav Moshe David said. Some of it maybe because they didn't have much to say, some of it might be because the time of if I may be less spiritual, the time of writing of the Mishnah is much later, so probably when it was edited and written down, there was very little back from the previous generation. So from the first generation you have barely anything, and then when you go further on, then you have much more understanding. Just like think of the stories of your grandparents, right? You heard maybe something about your great grandparents, but then it's maybe 2 stories. and your great-grandparents, you know a bit more, and your grandparents, you know a lot, and so on. So of course, as when the Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi needs to gather these things, there's the knowledge that is remembered from previous generations is smaller than the knowledge that you have to think that happened in your generations or one or two previous generations. That's a much less inspiring explanation than Rav Moshe David, but probably makes a bit more historical sense. So what I want to say about the generation, that there's a jump that happens in the first chapter. So Mary, I will share with you the Mishnah, and I will explain where that jump comes. Right now, we don't look on the content, only on the names. So we started from the first name that comes with Shimon HaTzadik, the last from Knesset HaGedolah. We talked about it, so I don't know. So after Shimon HaTzadik, Shimon the righteous, then we come to Antignos Yitzucho, who studied from him, and then we come to the time of the couples. Remember, like the Zugot, Yosei ben Yoezer, Yosei ben Yochanan, and then the couple after them, you have Yoshua ben Pachia and Nitai Arbeli. The next couple, Yudah ben Tebai and Shimon ben Shatach. So everyone, we go generation after generation, and Shmaya v'Avtalion, and then we come to Hillel and Shammai. And as you remember from the shiur, I know you all remember it, the time of Hillel and Shammai is more or less, minus 30 to 0, something like that. So about 100 years before the destruction of the temple. So you'll expect that the next one after Hillel and Shammai will be someone in the years 0, 10, 20. No, then comes a huge jump. We go over from Hillel and Shammai to Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel is already he's the last Nasi. You can see that it's not a couple anymore. We went from couples, from Zugot, to one leader, to one that is responsible, and that will go on from now on. But we jump over to Rabban Gamliel from Hillel and Shammai, and that's there's a gap there of time. Shimon is Rabban Gamliel's son. You can see that all the ones we had before, it said that they studied from those before them, right? We had in Hillel and Shammai, they got from Shmaya and Avtalion. There was a description of giving forward. In Rabban Gamliel, it just says, he says. He used to say, so we don't have the direct delivery, you can say, of the Torah, partially maybe because of the destruction of the temple. But it's interesting that we know of many rabbis at the same time. So we have Rabban Gamliel, then Shimon, then Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. That's the Mishnayot we finished with. And now we go over to Rabbi. As you can see here, Rabbi, it says, we don't need to introduce. He doesn't even have a name. When you say Rabbi, everyone knows who he is. And maybe we'll say something about it later. But Rabbi, as we know, there's a discussion when exactly he lives, but he's more or less, we usually say in Mishnah, the year 200. Some say it a bit earlier, some afterward, but around the year 200. Rabbi lives, is born maybe in 130, 140, something like that. But when we'll go further down in this chapter, we will go back in time. When we come to the end of this chapter, of chapter 2, we'll go to Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, who was the main rabbi before the destruction of the temple and in the beginning after the destruction. But he's already a great rabbi at the time of the destruction of the temple. So he lived long before. He never met Rabbi. But so there's a different, something happens here that changed the course. I would argue that there's something about the leadership of the Jewish people. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and his disciples are already the leaders of Judaism, but not necessarily the leaders of, they're not the president of their time. We know Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he asked for Rabban Gamliel to become the Nasi. There's a famous story about that. So he's not the Nasi, the president, he's not the leader of the Jewish people. He's maybe the greatest rabbi of his time. I might maybe even I need to be careful with that, saying that maybe the president is not necessarily the greatest rabbi of his time. That there's a difference. We talk about it. You can see it a lot today. That there's no doubt that the chief rabbi in Israel, or the chief rabbi of France, or other places, it's not necessarily the greatest rabbi or the most important rabbi. He's a rabbi. He's then elected. He's someone he's in many ways both a politician and a rabbi. It's important, but there's a difference that happened there. That's a bit about the structure. So we have we don't go only into the delivery of the Torah, but also delivery of leadership. Who is the president? Who continues the leadership of the Jewish people? Rav Natan, you're very welcome to disagree if you have a different understanding to that. But now I also want to add a few words about Rabbi. When the Mishnah uses the word Rabbi, it means Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. It's it's clear that he's the central figure of that world, that everyone knows who he is. It's automatically. The same thing will happen today if you go to different yeshivot. As I will say many times, we'll say Harav. Harav. Now there are different places in Israel, and when you say Harav, you mean probably someone not the same person. If you go, Rav Natan, you have examples, right? Who is Harav?
Yes, there are major differences between small groups in the Jewish world. Who is Harav? Yes. So, for instance, in many yeshivot that would go by Rav Kook's name, they would say Harav. They would mean Rav Kook, which was the first chief rabbi of Israel, and started the
before
big,
the state
yeshiva.
of Israel.
What?
He was the chief rabbi of before the state of Israel existed. So he was under the British mandate, the chief rabbi of the area. He wasn't the chief rabbi of the state of Israel, but the chief rabbi of the
the land of Israel.
Of the land of Israel, exactly. Yeah. So automatically, in my world, most of the national religious people will say Harav, Harav Kook. In the Haredi world, no one will think that Harav is Harav Kook. I don't know who they will address to, the different grade. And in the yeshiva I studied, in Har Etzion, Harav would be
Rav Soloveitchik, I assume.
Rav Soloveitchik, of course, the rabbi from the US. And he was the rabbi. So it's but at the time of the Mishnah, there was no such thing. Rabbi was only one person. It was and Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, he was a figure. I don't want to go into all the aspects of his life. We have much more information about him, so I can use many shiurim only about his figure, and that's not the goal of this shiur. We want to study the text of Masechet Avot. But a few words that I will say. The tradition that the Rabbi was born either during or right after or very close after the revolution of the Mered, the rebellion of Bar Kokhba. So he's and Bar Kokhba. That's really the end of the Jewish independence in that time. Some of it finished with the destruction of the temple. The revolt of Bar Kokhba in his time was a time of they tried to again start a independent state in the land. And after this rebellion fell in the destruction of Beitar, and so many rabbis were murdered, and so on, it's almost the very end of the Jewish ruling in Israel. But there's a light coming very quickly with Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, as I say, he became the leader, I don't know, 40, 50 years after the event of Bar Kokhba. And at his time, it's probably the best time for the Jews in so many years. He had a very, very good relationship with Roman, not only empire, but emperor. There's different stories about the connection between him and Antoninus, and stories, and it went so amazingly that the Mishnah, in many different places, there are hints that Rabbi was perceived, maybe he himself thought, that he was the Messiah, the Mashiach. There are different rules to feel that now they came to the greatest time. That for example, there are debates if he tried or even did cancel Tisha B'Av because we came to the great times. So it was an amazing time. So despite the stories we tell ourselves of 2,000 years of galut, of exile, it's definitely not true. In the year 200, the Jews are in great shape in the land of Israel. But at the same time, they start also a very strong Jewish center in Babylon, which will in 100 years arise and take over completely. But at the time in the time of Rabbi, it starts and it's unclear. And he's an amazing figure. He is the one to edit the Mishnah as we know it today, and he himself has many lots of content that we bring. I think that's enough with the historic aspects. I don't know if Rav Natan, do you want to add something? There are stories, there are many different things. Maybe we'll say one thing. In the time of Rabbi, there's a very famous song that probably all of you know, and I'm not sure you ever thought why we're singing it. David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayam. It was a code that was used about Rabbi. David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayam, that David is live and strong. I don't know exactly my freestyle translation. These words, David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayam, were said about Rabbi in some kind of a code, debating the territory in Israel was divided in two. But the words were said about him, and since then became a code for the Jews, and a great song sung by our children today, still in synagogues and everywhere in the world. So it started with him, and it's connected to this aspect that they saw him as the almost king, from the root from King David, because he continues this the family of King David, even though it's through the mother at some places. But he was almost King David sitting again on the Jewish throne. That's how amazing is it. He was at the same time was a great scholar, creating and editing the Mishnah, and gives us the greatest tool that we continue, that all the Torah Sheba'al Peh is built on. Good. I spoke too much, so Rav Natan, I think I'll let you read now the Mishnah and start to talk about a bit what the Rabbi says.
Okay, so I just want to underline, because you said it in the end, but maybe it wasn't clear, that the Rabbi, he was the one who edited the Mishnah. What we are reading now is Rabbi's creation. So now we are reading the writer's note here. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi edited the whole Mishnah, all the Masechtot, including the halachic Mishnayot, the Mishnayot who talk about halacha, and actually he is the one who's responsible for the oral Torah. He was the one who gathered all the Mishnayot, all the sayings that we had from previous generations, and made this incredible treasure that from here we took it on to what we have as Judaism today. So and actually, I think Rav Jair said it also. Maybe I don't know if everybody realized that it's a question: why do we start a new chapter here, right? Because basically it's continuing the previous chapter. We just go through the generations, like Rav Jair explained. We read the last Mishnah of chapter 1 was the Mishnah of Rabbi's father, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. And so we're just continuing on. So what's the purpose of starting a new chapter? It's not a new subject, at least seemingly. It's not a new subject. It's not a new theme. Why should we start a chapter here? And one of the explanations that we have is that we're giving honor to Rabbi. We're giving honor to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi to start the Mishnah. When we got to his saying, with the chain of generations, we're starting a new perek. We're starting a new chapter, because Rabbi is actually a new chapter. Even though he continues and he gathers all the generations before him, he is the pillar of the oral Torah, and the pillar of all of our Jewish being. So I wanted to underline this. You said it, Rav Jair. I just wanted to underline it.
Natan, I thought it was to give hope to the students of the Nordic Beit Midrash that they could finish a whole chapter without learning for an entire year. So it just gives them a good feeling that they finished it. I think that was the meaning. That's why for all of these years it's been that way.
You see how Rabbi influences us until today, 2,000 years later. So let's dive into the text. Maybe we can get upwards again.
You want it in Hebrew?
Rabbi said,
Yeah.
we could read the English, right? Rabbi said, which is the straight path that a man should choose for himself? Ezohi derech yeshara sheyavor lo ha'adam. So this is just a simple question, one of the day-to-day questions all of us ask. Just between supper and going to sleep, we're asking ourselves, what's the right way to go? And
so you can see the Hebrew next to
good.
the.
Good, thank you. Yes. Now let's go upwards. I think it's yes.
Yeah.
So he gives an answer. What is the straight path? One which is an honor to the person adopting it, and honor to him from others. כל שהיא תפארת לעושיה ותפארת לו מן האדם. So, what is a straight path? A straight path is a path that is giving honor to the person adopting it, to the one who goes in that way, and gives him honor from others. So I think it requires a discussion, right? First of all, if I would ask us, if I would just ask you, what is the straight path that we should take? I imagine we would hear answers like being righteous, or being clean, being not to lie. But he says here something that sounds like a code. It applies to many different areas in our lives. And this code is a code that is interesting, right? It has to give honor to us, and it has to honor us, it has to enable us to get honor from others.
Which is so weird, right, Rav Natan? I always grew up on that we don't need to care so much about the honor of, we need to do the good thing, the right thing, but like honor is, it's a weird choice. Why?
Yeah, I'd say even your question calls me to ask, what's the difference, right? What's the difference between the first part of the answer and the second part of the answer? What's the difference between honor to the person adopting it and honor to him from others?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
and actually, I would also remark that the word tiferet is not exactly honor.
Yes,
it's not kavod. The word honor is kavod. Tiferet, you're better to English than I am. Tiferet, it's
Tiferet is connected to beauty,
to glory.
To glory. Yes.
Yes, right. There's something that's a glory. It's something to show. It's even more than honor, right? Like Tiferet is something that I, in my view, in my eyes, Tiferet is more visual. Like it's something you can see. That it, and kavod is like more vague. It's edu mechubad we have, like we need to ask. Tiferet is very clear. Ze mefoar. This is
well, actually, to me, I actually like the word tiferet upon honor, in the sense that honor sounds to me from the world of what's the word, of nimusim, of
manners,
politeness.
Yeah.
And tiferet is more from the world of the inner value that we find. So someone that does something that gives him tiferet, I think it's actually an inner thing. It's you do something. In Hebrew there's the word chen. I think it could be part of that, something that when you do it, it shows. It shows.
But
it
I would
affects
argue
you.
that it's the opposite. I think I disagree here, because exactly the word chen is something in limtzochen. It's something. It's not clear. It's a virtue that you need to find. It's inside. Tiferet is very outside. We use the word in modern Hebrew. We use the word tiferet mefoar. We say it about a palace, right? Or like it's very clear. It's actually very very visual. Tiferet, more than if it was chen here, I would agree with you. Mashu chinani, it's something that has chen, something that, but tiferet is some kind of glory, like it gives glory. It's even now.
So in English, also glory. Actually, it's very interesting, because the word glory in English, at least, if I tell you that my grandfather, he's being glorified, it's something that has, my grandmother used to say, we also have some ancient like a small Megillah that shows that we are descendants of King David also. Not that it means anything. Half the people have what you have also.
I have the same thing. I just found it 3 years ago. I found the connection.
I think half the Jews have connection to David.
No, the problem of Natan is actually all Ashkenazi Jews have it, but not everyone has the evidence. But there's no Ashkenazi Jews that is not a descendant of Rashi.
I see, exactly.
But don't tell them, it will ruin it, because now we feel like
what
royalty.
I wanted to say is that some take it more seriously than others. And my grandmother used to tell me a story that her grandmother would tell all of our descendants, all of our children and grandchildren, remember that you are sons of kings. And you should act by it. And it's something that really went deep into my grandmother's character. And she tried to tell us that also. I don't think she succeeded so much. But this idea that, walk around with the sense that you are a son of a king. And how does that affect your behavior? We can see it now. There's a whole stories with a son of a king, right? What does he do? What does he say? And what he doesn't say? And what kind of things is he glorifying himself, or is he doing the opposite? Right? There's a whole story about it, because it's something. If you are a son of a king, so it matters how you act. It matters what you do. It matters how you present yourself. So in that sense, I think that it's very interesting that this is a way we can take Prince Harry for an example. It is what he's doing. If he believes in what he's doing, regardless of who he is, regardless of what his family is from, Rabbi says it's not enough, right? You have to do something that you have to act not only by what you want, what you wish, by what will glorify you in the eyes of yourself, and what would other people see as glorifying you.
Yeah, but Rav Natan, I will maybe continue on what you say, and will distinguish. Kol shi tiferet leosea. When you talked about Prince Harry, you talked about the thing he says, how he glorifies himself. This is not what it says here. The tiferet that comes here is not what he does, what a person should do. He should do things that gives him glory. Kol shi tiferet leosea. Leosea, to those who do these things, not to those who say these things, or things you want people to know you. It's two different things. One is doing things that will glorify, that you will feel that you can go straighten out, that you did things that are good, that are right. But what you needed is to do them, you didn't need to glorify yourself. You need to choose things that are give you glory. Choose things that are important. Maybe I will also carefully say things that are important. So he chooses here, and Tiferet lo min Adam also, that maybe as a Rabbi, also as a leader, he that the visuals are important also regarding how people see you. It's also relevant. It's important. We tend to say, I hate it when people say to bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah boys and girls, you shouldn't care what people say. Do what you feel right for you. No, then nothing that I will disagree more than this. No, yes, you need to do the right things that are right for you, but you shouldn't act as if it doesn't matter what the other thing. No, we are part of a world. We are in a debate with the world. It's important. The things that we do, also the way it's perceived, it's also important, because it's important to us to be in dialogue and connection with others. So the way we our deeds are perceived are also important. I think this maybe is part of what the Rabbi says. I don't know if you disagree or.
So, I was about to say that in this point, really, I think that there's a huge, like you started to say, a huge difference between the first part and the second part. Tiferet leosea, I think it's something that is essential to you. You ask yourself, and I loved what you said about the difference between saying and doing, and that the focus shouldn't be what glorifies me, but what is the true path that I'm taking, that as a result of it, it will be glorified. because
whoever do it, because
to whoever does it,
these things
yes,
get glorified.
Yes, so I connected to what you said very much about that, but this is one thing, and in many cases, there could be some conflict between those two parts. If I'm doing something that I feel is the right thing to do, and it's really the right thing to do, but it's against what the mainstream thinks. And I believe that whoever does those things it is a glorifying thing. It's a thing that stands as an extraordinary thing that I'm doing. And still, it doesn't give me a lot of glory from the rest of the people. I'll just give a very simple example, especially in our areas. If I decide to be a bit more devout in my prayer, for instance, in a community that the prayer is something that is less central, and so I'm praying with kavanah, I'm praying with all my heart, with passion, and that means that the minyan is waiting for me because I'm the 10th person, or if that means that I would like to pray and out loud, and that would disturb other people, or that sort of thing, which is a deep conflict between what I feel is the right thing to do, and I feel not only it's the right thing to do, it glorifies me in the sense that I'm going a step further. I'm being more like the son of the king, if we take what we talked about before. But when this is presented to the society around me, it is accepted as the opposite. What would Rabbi say about that? And it seems to me like Rabbi would say, it's not virtuous enough. If you do things that you see as meaningful or as glorifying, but your surroundings will not be satisfied with it, it's a problem. And I agree with you that this is very much connected to Rabbi, who knew how to go between those lines. It was important for him to know how to walk among the Romans, and we know that he acted in different ways as the Roman way of life. And he was a good messenger in that sense of the Jewish people to the outside. And so I think that he really dealt with it a lot. How do I keep my virtue and my passion, my truth to being Jewish, but also being honorable and present myself in a way that will be accepted to the outside. But there are other schools, and that's to me it's important to say here that there
maybe
are.
Natan, you can even be specific here. Maybe it's not by coincidence that Rabbi says "V'tiferet lo min ha'adam." It's not like among the Israelites or like with our people. It's any human. You should think that any human will look and will think of glorifying, which makes it harder, right? It's not only about being a Jewish righteous. You actually need to act at the Menschkeit at the highest level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And maybe if I can say another aspect here, that Ezo Hiderech Yeshara, maybe that's also part of the concept, that which is the straight path. Because we talk a lot about things we do. Which things should a person do, right? This is what we used again and again. Which things will give us glory? But the word that Rabbi starts with is Ezo Hiderech Yeshara. Shiavor lo Adam. Which is the straight path that a man should come, not which deeds he should do, which actions. It's not the result, it is a path. It's the things you do is about how you do them during this way. The path that you choose. not the goals you choose. We're very
Yes.
focused on the goals, the path.
Yes. But actually, I have a little chidush here about this idea of the path, which I wanted to share. And I didn't read it anywhere, but I thought about it a lot a few years ago. But I just want to say before that, the other schools of thought, because it's connected to this, we have many schools of thought who asked us to ignore what other people would think about us, and to do the right thing regardless of what other people perceive, and to see what's the truth that we hold, and what our heart tells us as what is holy, of course within the boundaries of what Judaism allows us to do. But the important thing is our direct connection to God, and not through the prism of other people. And in Chassidut, it's very much expressed, and also with Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, who said that the person should live as if he's alone in the world, and disregard what his wife or his parents would say. If that is what he thinks is the right way to go in his service of God, that's what he should do. And of course, the school of the Rabbi of Kotsk and others, and it starts already in our sages. My little chidush was, and that Rabbi offers the straight path. What is derech yeshara? Now, a straight path is for someone who wants to go on the safe side. In other words, if you don't trust yourself, either because you don't know enough, or because you have this kind of personality that needs straightness, it couldn't go too far up and too low down, then this is the straight way to go, but not always it's the best way to go. The Rabbi doesn't say mazadech tova she'avolo adam, what is the good path. It says what is the straight path. And I think that it's necessary for many people. Many people need the straight path. It's important that Jews know what is the straight path. And it's very clean cut here. It's very easy, because you have to think what is the right thing that you can feel proud of, and you will get also the recognition, the acceptance from the world around you, and then you're safe. You know, I'm fine. I feel that I'm doing the good thing, and the people around me give me this safety net that I am going in the right thing. But that is the straight path. A person who's a little more of a flame, or a little more of a wind, a person who's striving for more, maybe you can find other paths, and it's really more dangerous because he doesn't have the safety net.
You could say that we have the way of Yaakov and the way of Israel. Israel is the yashar, the straight, right, and the Yaakov is the Yaakov lemishor, that you have the path that is a bit crooked. You don't see exactly where you're going. You find the smutvai. You find like a special way that, and we have both aspects. Sometimes we need this, and sometimes we need the other one. Yes, and we managed to read the first 3 sentences, and now we have 12 minutes to the rest of the Mishnah. So
go ahead.
Okay, so we continue with the honor, and he adds the Hevei Zahir, and be careful with the light commandment, as with a grave one, for you did know not the reward for the fulfillment of the commandment. Okay, so the first aspect, you should be careful if it's a light commandment or a grave commandment. If it's I feel very hard any example I will say will ruin the whole idea, because if I'll say this is something light and this is something grave, then I already starting measuring it, not giving them the same cautiousness that Rabbi wants us to take. Like, regardless if it's from a small thing of which bracha you say on which on every thing, and the concept of not to murder. Okay, let's agree that not to murder is a very grave commandment. And he comes and says, no, even the smallest, the slightest mitzvah, how to cut your nails Friday before Shabbat, right? I hope you all cut the right way. We have a specific what you start with and so on. Like, do we take seriously it's not a mitzvah, don't worry, it's just a custom.
Isn't it something pretty radical to say? We know that there are mitzvot that are more important than the others. We know that there are mitzvot from the Torah and mitzvot from the Rabbanan. We know that there are mitzvot that you must perform, and if you mustn't give up on them, even if you're threatened by death, and there are some that you should not perform if you're threatened by death. There is a hierarchy of mitzvot.
Yeah, but I agree. There is a hierarchy, and the Rabbi also doesn't say that there's no hierarchy, right? He says you have these mitzvot and these mitzvot, but you have to be careful with all of them in the same level. You should take the light ones as seriously as you take the serious ones. Now, the reasoning behind it, which I really like, he doesn't say because the one is as important. He says because you don't know what. Here he talks about the sachar, the reward, that you don't know what is more, how much everyone is rewarded. But I would not think so much about the reward, but about the she'en ata yodea. You don't know, because usually when we set the levels of what is more important, then it's about us. It's about our understanding of what is more important, and that is like taking our own opinions as we think as if we know better than everyone else. She'en ata yodea. He doesn't say because no one knows. He doesn't say because there are many places that you do have descriptions of the sachar, but the focus she'en ata yodea. Don't think you know what is more important. It's fine that you assume that you know, but act as if you don't know. Act even on mitzvot that you think, this is not that important. No, take care of also on that one. It doesn't mean you don't need to have the assumption what is more important. But you need to be extremely careful with the things that you think are less important. If you think they're less important, be careful with that. Because why do you think you know so good?
Let me say it a slightly different way. Maybe there is a difference between how mitzvah is more important or less important, and what is the so-called reward you are getting from it. In other words, you know what is mitzvah kala and what is mitzvah chamura, but the reward or the benefit, I don't think we're talking really about physical reward, but the benefit you are getting from this, you can never know. And it depends a lot about the situation and about your situation, about who you are and what do you do and how do you do it. And so maybe there is a distinction, like you said, there is a distinction between an important mitzvah and a less important mitzvah. I don't know if important or less important. There's a mitzvah kala and mitzvah chamura. There are mitzvot that are more serious, more grave than others. But you don't know when you perform what is the benefit or what is the merit of you doing the mitzvah in a certain time in a certain situation? And I think to me that is what's so special, because I once remember I had before on Yom Kippur, I heard a talk from a rabbi that I was influenced by, Rabbi Steinsaltz, and he said that most people on Yom Kippur, they think about their averot, about the bad things that they did. But actually, what's much more serious, when you do an avera, you can do tshuva, you can you have repentance and you finish. But what about the mitzvot that you're doing? How are you doing them? If you're having a little mitzvah, if you gave tzedakah, but you were really rude about giving it, that is ruining a good thing. And in a way, it's much, much more troublesome. Or if you are doing something and you don't mean it, or if you're doing something halfway, sometimes it's better not to do it at all in a certain way. So this is the negative side of it. But in the positive side, when you do something, it matters how you do it, and it matters where you come from. If you're doing a small thing, but it requires a huge effort from you, no one can say if that's worth more than someone who does a huge thing, but it requires no effort. And actually, with our sages, we know that it's the opposite, that there is merit to doing something lefum tza'ara agra, right? The hard to do something, the more the reward is. So this idea of...
But the rabbis didn't like it. They said,
what?
Don't give us the problems and don't give us the benefit. Many times the rabbi weren't happy with with that idea that they said, that if it's harder, then it's better. So it's the lo tzara v'lo schara. Like, don't give me the benefit and don't give me the trouble.
I don't know. I think that here maybe we disagree, but I think that the essence of trying to think. I'll say something else, which I told a friend of mine a few weeks ago about my experience here in Malmö. I'm a pretty new rabbi, or a very new rabbi, and my experience in Malmö was, and I think it's true to all of Scandinavia, as a matter of fact, that it's so hard to be Jewish in Scandinavia. It really is. For a person who comes from Israel, it's so easy. It's hard. It's really hard. It's objectively hard. It's objectively hard to keep kosher. It's objectively hard to keep prayer and minyanim. And I told someone we are trying to have on Shabbatot, we're trying to have a prayer with a minyan. And sometimes people come and they need to leave early. And we could be mad at them. But I told someone, a Jew that performs a half a mitzvah in Scandinavia or in Sweden, in my case, it has so much merit. How much effort is needed to keep even a little bit kosher, even to do one thing on Shabbat. Even in a way, I feel that here, it's really, this is the essence of this thing. We don't know, so we should cherish every half mitzvah that we find that we manage to do. And if we don't manage to do other mitzvahs, so we should find strength to do them as well.
I understand what you say. I don't think Rabbi agreed with you. Rabbi comes here and says, Kala kechamura, all of that, everything is important. I'm not sure this is the essence, but this is maybe what it opens in your world regarding how we keep mitzvot today. Because he comes and said the direction that comes here. Rabbi says, which is the right way for the straight path for a man, and he goes very individually on how every one of us, needs to take it seriously. So kalaki chamura. It's not a general like he has a direction for all of us that we need to do it better, very clearly. He doesn't come say how wonderful it is that you don't know. He comes and demands. So you should. There are hard aspects here that you have to be careful with. And not only saying it's not because I disagree with you. I agree with you that we should cherish people that despite the area and despite the difficulties. I agree, but I'm not sure this is what Rabbi said.
I think that you're right in what you're underlining now, but I think it's the same thing. In other words, he won't. Rabbi would say you have to do everything, and for a person to think, I agree with you, for a person to think that since it's hard, you should keep some of Shabbat, but not keep, we need to keep everything, and we need to keep every little detail, and also because we don't know. If a person will tell me, yes, I'm doing my best, so I'm trying to do only the most important mitzvah, then Rabbi wouldn't agree with him at all. But I think that in the same time, this is exactly the line that goes through this sentence, which is really radical. You could never feel that you've done enough because you don't know the merit of any mitzvah. And if you have the opportunity to do a mitzvah and you're not doing it, then it's a problem because you don't know the benefit, the sachar that you're getting of the mitzvot. But you shouldn't.
I suggest that we'll continue to be able to read the whole Mishnah through, even though we will have less time to discuss them. Okay. Is it fine, Natan?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, good. Because I see the time and the moment we finish it. So he adds. Where did I finish?
And be careful.
Is worth it. Yeah,
also reckon
the loss. Okay, also reckon the loss. That basis of a commandment against the reward. I mean, you should weigh what thereby and the gain that may be obtained through the committing of a transgression against the loss until thereby. I don't think we should go into the details of that one. We can, because I want to also say a few to come to the end. But in general, he says you should weigh the benefit and the loss of every action. Remember that even though you feel you lose something, maybe regarding what you said of Natan, when you need to choose, it's hard. You have lots on stake, either money or time, or is it worth the loss when you need to do a mitzvah, comparing to what you gain from doing it. Remember that every loss has a gain too. So, and not doing something, so if you choose to do something wrong, what will be the reward, which here will be in a negative way, punishment. That is also you have to measure and understand. Try to see the full picture whenever you make a decision. I would say something like that. You agree with that, Natan? Because if yes,
and there's more to think about
to the last part, because we don't have we already passed the time. So just read the last one. Do you want to read?
Apply your mind to three things, and you will not come into the clutches of sin. Everybody, listen. Know what there is above you, an eye that sees, an ear that hears, and all your deeds are written in the book. So basically, there are differences between the three, and it's interesting to think about the differences, but I think the safe side of all of them is when you know that someone is watching you, when you know that that your deeds and your actions are filed somewhere, and that they have a meaning, they exist somewhere, and someone looks at them, then you are more careful with what you do.
Yes. There's a lot to say about that part. I think I will let the rabbi who will teach us exactly the same words are coming also later in the Mishnah. Then it will be interesting to look at to compare what the differences between what it said here and what the Mishnah says later. But I agree in general, the idea of being seen, that you should feel that there is someone watching, comes very clear. There are many other aspects and details to look here, but I urge you to find out online maybe some ideas that go to this. We have to finish out of respect to your time. This is definitely a to be continued that can be discussed also in many aspects in these words here. So thank you so much for tonight. It was great starting with you. Toda Rab Natan.
Thank you, Avot.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Evening. Thank you.
Thank you.